This is about the last 5 hours of my life where I'm the best teacher in the world, okay? Because they found a new one who's like way better than me, and that's going to be announced. So this is my last 5 hours of glory, and look who I get to spend it with. This is phenomenal. I'm so excited. As you may know, I'm a gym teacher, so this is like the most amazing gym class one could ever ask for, okay? So I'm going to keep the introductions a little brief because I know we want to get to the questions, and also in this panel we're going to have opportunity for questions from the audience too. So if you've got burning questions, think about them and wave your hands up and down, and I'm going to point you out and get you to ask. But first, just a couple of introductions. I don't think anybody here needs to be introduced, but maybe there's some, nerds in the room who aren't aware of these phenomenal athletes here. But just in case, may I start with Dwight Yorke, a renowned, let's clap, guys. This is huge. It's incredible that they've come to this event. A record-breaking football player, okay? He's played for teams such as Aston Villa, Manchester United. I'm sure there's fans in here, okay? Originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much. And this is not his first time here supporting this conference, so thank you so much for coming back again. I'm shaking my hand because last night I met. I feel like he just needs to be called Wladimir.
We've met.
Okay?
Once again.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. I swear, I'm kind of tough, right? I think I'm kind of resilient. And he literally crushed my hand when he shaked it. I was like, this is world-class power. In fact, when he retired, okay, and he announced his retirement online, he broke the internet. Okay? Amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
okay? You. And now over here, love the ladies, okay? We have Natalie Coughlin Hall, okay? This lady here, she could have swam here, okay, from America. She has won, correct me, okay, 12 Olympic medals. I believe she's the most decorated American female athlete of all time. Okay. Okay, now we're jumping across to the world of cricket, okay? We have, this is like bowlers and batters, right? Yeah. This is the ultimate matchup, okay? We have, thank you for coming, Wasim Akram, former cricketer, and I'm sure you still play, like you don't fully retire, you play a little recreationally, right? World-renowned bowler from Pakistan. Thank you for coming. And it is such an honor, again, to have Brian Lara here. He's been such a supporter to the Varkey Foundation. One of the best batters of all time. Also, the Trinidad and Tobago connection. Okay, so, and me, Maggie, so yeah. Okay, so now we'll launch into some of the good questions. Let's see. Okay. Da-da-da. Now, we know we're all here for the Global Teacher Prize, okay? This is a remarkable initiative brought about by Sunny Varkey, the Varkey Foundation, and supported by, His Highness Shaheed Mohammed. How lucky we are for that. If the Global Teacher Prize existed when you were young, which teacher would you have nominated? And again, I'm the type of teacher who thinks that not all classrooms have four walls. And we find teachers in all parts of our lives, not just in the classroom, So maybe I'll start with Dwight. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Which teacher would you have nominated for the Global Teacher Prize, and why?
I mean, at a very young age, I got involved in sport, but even though you have your parents, which clearly I had, they were never there all the time. Certainly from my experience, my mom, they were supportive, but most of the time as a kid, you tend to spend a lot of times in the classrooms and in schools a lot of the time. And often enough, you always come across a teacher who always take an interest in you, i.e. as a parent. So someone who I consider as a mentor for give me the guidance, fall in the trap, talent in me. If you dedicate it, although the opportunity of as much, and football was more like a second sport for us. But because I was talented in sport and because I had such person in my life like Bertus Sinclair, he was the one that said, listen, if you dedicated yourself with your schoolwork and focus and stay away from all the bad things, then anything is possible. So I was very lucky to have someone like Bertus Sinclair for me to give me that guidance. And so that's why even today I can look back with his guidance, with his commitment to me, that was the reason why I'm here today. So I'm very thankful that I had such a person in my life.
Yeah, and I love how you touched on often we start out, our parent is so important to us in our early part of our life, but often then again we switch to teachers or coaches who help us through our adolescence or older years. So what about yourself, Wladimir?
Actually, the answer is right there. Moms first. And so she was thankful, but also learned through the times you actually can educate yourself through experience that you're collecting. And we have collected here a lot of experience. Not to forget, there's no one in the audience stronger, better, and smarter than all of us. So as a community, we're better in every way. And it's important to share the knowledge. That's why I think we're all here, and it's great to make this event happen. I believe 6 years ago or 7 years ago it was founded, and it's great. It gives motivation for teachers and get better, because it is important to be able to send a message out there that is going to be received well, because very often students have so much respect to teachers, and sometimes the language of the teachers are so complicated that you're really not getting, because of respect to the teacher, but also language barrier, not like we speak different languages, but just an understanding. So it's very important to give something simple and valuable, and as I said, if you share, you care. That's it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Natalie, has there been a teacher, a coach, or a mentor in your life that had a transformative impact on you?
Yeah, I was very lucky to have a handful of really great coaches and teachers throughout my life, but when you initially asked that question, one teacher came to mind, and it was my high school teacher, Mr. Oki, and he taught me in civics class and history class and also speech class. I kept going back to him because he was such a great educator. And the very first day of every one of his classes, he would read letters from the previous semester's classes about how difficult he is and about how challenging it's going to be. And if it's too challenging for you to transfer now before it's too late. And basically, he just threw down the challenge for us. Like, this is going to be tough. You're going to work hard. But if you accept this challenge, you're going to get so much out of it. And it, I'm being a competitor, being an athlete, I like the challenge, and so that really motivated me. But especially, he was my speech teacher, and being an athlete, an Olympian, we have to be up here, we have to be able to think on our feet, and a lot of the lessons that he taught me, I've taken for years and years and years. It was 20 years ago, and he had such an impact on me.
And I think as teachers, we often talk about high expectations and high support, and I'm sure he gave you high support in the classroom.
Exactly, and he had very, very high expectations, but all of us were able to,
Obviously, you have reached some high expectations. 12 Olympic gold medals, yes. Wasim, would you like to comment on somebody, a teacher, a coach who's had an impact on your life?
Yeah, what I've learned over the years that at every stage, at any stage, you need teacher or mentors. So when I was in school, there are a lot of teachers who were made an impact on my life, because my concentration wasn't in the studies. As a young kid, I was more of a sportsman. So I played soccer in soccer season. I wasn't that good at soccer, by the way. Right? And then I played hockey, tried hockey, played cricket, played table tennis, played basketball. And I think eventually I realized when I was in school, I got picked up for Pakistan team when I was the first year in my college.
Okay.
Yeah, I was only 16 and a half, 17 years old. So what I remember about my school is all the teachers, my sports teachers, Sir Lawrence, who was there, who was always encouraging me to play sport I love, and obviously, luckily, I picked up cricket and I went on to play for Pakistan. But when I came into Pakistan, I was only a very young kid. And then I met my senior players who were my mentors. And one mentor I must mention right now, who really made an impact on my cricketing life on and off the field, was great Imran Khan. Yes. I've learned a lot from him. I think little things, what I learned from him at sport cricket, we both played, that talent will stay for a certain time. The hard work you do, that will prolong your talent for next 15 to 20 years. And I think I got that very early on in my cricketing life, and that's why I went on to play for Pakistan against the greats like Brian Lara for about 20 odd years. So yes, mentors and teachers are very, very important. I still remember my school like it was yesterday because they made a massive impact on my life.
Thank you for sharing that. And now, Brian Lara, can you talk about somebody, a teacher or a coach who had a transformative experience with you, impact on you?
I think it would be someone by the name of Harry Ramdas, which when I got into college, he was my cricket coach, my football coach, and also my Spanish teacher. And looking back at it, I believe that the way how I approached my career had something to do with him. Because every time I was very successful, I was very tough on myself. I went back and I looked at videos to try to make it even better. If I was not too successful or going through a bad patch, especially when I faced Wasim, I didn't worry about it too much. And I suppose that came from him because at cricket practice, 14 years old, you're the best out there, and he's just punishing me. And I don't know why you're punishing me. All these guys not doing their job. And I was very bad at Spanish, and he didn't care. So I believe that the work that he put into me and made me better. And I felt that every time I was successful, I needed to work harder. And I believe that that came from his sort of mentoring during school time, spending extra time with me. I scored 100. We need to go back into the nets. Why do I need to go back into the nets? Say, because you need to score another 100 tomorrow. And I believe that Harry Ramdas really and truly was a very instrumental person in my success.
That's beautiful. And you comment on that, both of you did on that hard work. Well, I think everybody on that hard work, still working hard. The Varkey Foundation. Applying for that funding. Correct? Teacher. And she was successful from Malaysia in applying for funding, and she was able to take her students to the top of one of the mountains in her home country. The highest mountain in Malaysia. 4,095 meters high. Okay, that's so symbolic. And she climbed with them together. And she's going to show the video now. Yasmin, and I think this is so wonderful how we kind of perceive or do not perceive failure per se, but she didn't quite make it to the top, okay, with her students, but her students did make it to the top. And they gave a message to her from there, which is just quite beautiful. So I think we're going to share that on the screens now. Wow, so beautiful, eh? So beautiful that they took that moment on top of the mountain to thank their teacher. So that project, I mean, it did so much, but it also, strengthened a relationship between a teacher and her students, which is probably one of the most profound tools we have in the classroom. So how does it feel, if I can ask, just watching that video?
It's very, very touching, and I believe that they had a lot of very good ventures in Australia, in the Philippines, in Africa as well. And congratulations to you and your boys. It's excellent to see, and I look forward to even better ventures in the future.
I might be applying for that funding, so that sounds exciting. And I know that you're not the only one who is giving back, so maybe I'll ask if anybody else wants to talk about how they're also maybe giving back to the community.
Yes, I think me and my wife, we've been working on Akram Foundation in Pakistan. Our main focus is sports education.
Okay.
And as we all know, sports are very, very important as well, especially from developing countries we are from.
Mm-hmm.
As a young kid, if you get into sport, you learn how to compete, you develop physically, and obviously you develop mentally.
Yes.
And you also learn to accept defeat, and with that, obviously, the triumph. So this is the idea. We probably be at the early stages, but Akram Foundation has been doing a lot of work. My wife is from Australia. She's not here today, unfortunately, Shanira.
Yeah.
She's doing a lot with the education, girls' education and girls' empowerment as well. And I think I have Sumaira, who has been, you met Sumaira a little while ago, who's on the panel to pick the teachers as well. We're also trying to start the same event like this one in Pakistan, because there are a lot of teachers in Pakistan who is doing a great deal of good stuff, great stuff for the young kids of Pakistan future generation.
Teachers matter. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for shining a spotlight on them. And yourself, have you been able to come to a point in your career where you're also able to give back?
Definitely. Being an Olympic athlete, you're given such an amazing platform. And I think it's really important that all of us, we have this wonderful platform and to use it for something good. So one of the organizations that I've been involved with since 2004 is Right to Play. So they're based in many countries around the world, and it uses the power of play as an educational tool. So for instance, in 2012, I went into the field in Rwanda and got to see what I was supporting for so many years, and get to finally see it in person, because I had a basic understanding of the program, but until you actually go into the field, you really don't see how it works. And in Rwanda, a lot of the issues are, some health issues like malaria, inclusion with people with disabilities, for instance. There are some hygiene issues, and you use these games, these wonderful, simple games, but it teaches such a powerful message. So, for instance, we use a game of tag, and it's malaria tag, and so it's to teach the kids how malaria is spread. So someone, basically it's a game of dodgeball. I don't know if you guys are familiar with dodgeball, but someone is the mosquito, and so you have a red ball, and you could throw it at someone else, but if they have their mosquito net, so if they go like this, if they go like that, you can't throw the ball at them. And so it teaches these very, very young kids that if they sleep under their mosquito nets, it's something that they could do to prevent themselves from getting malaria. And so it's an educational tool, and many Olympians and other athletes have been involved in the organization for many years, and has done so much good, and I feel very fortunate to have worked with them.
I'm so glad to hear that. I was actually in the field for 1.5 years with Right to Play.
Oh my gosh.
So, and it transformed my life and my career. So that's
a
wonderful
exactly.
story.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Now, yourself, are you at a stage where you're able to start giving back to the community as well? And perhaps you've been doing it throughout your whole career too. So
Absolutely, giving back, as I also stressed, very important, and I have created and founded a method which is called challenge management, change and innovation management, and self-management. And I found a partner, in this case an ally, University of St. Gallen. So it's a CA certified study course. We're in the 3rd year with Foundation of Center of Competence. We're 2 people working and writing their PhD work about this topic, challenge management. Very interesting fact, one person I'm financing one person that is writing the PhD work, and the other person is financing the student from the first year of study course.
Yeah.
Because he's so, Simon, his name is Simon, and he's so excited about it and believes in this method so much that he said, listen, let's research it, and I'm going to finance it as well. So it's something that eventually, hopefully on a bigger scale, will help people in business, sports, politics, family life, basically anywhere. I also try to implement it with the teenagers, and it works as well, because this study course is only created for executives, but challenge management works also for the kids, in this case teenagers. And the principles of challenge management are face the challenge. So every letter of face stands for certain quality. Focus, we talked with Natalie about it last night, which is very important to achieve anything in life. Agility is extremely important, same as coordination and endurance, because endurance beats the masterpiece. You could have a lot of talent, but if you're not in a good condition and you can hold up for a long time, you're obviously not gonna be in a race. So those qualities are basically people have.
I think that abroad for someone who can see Brian in cricket and myself now become role model being hope. You know, you can give opportunity, something that we've been lacking in our part of the world for a number of years. And myself and Brian are living proof that if you focus and you're committed, you have your dream and fulfill your dreams. And as I said, I've got a bungalow house back there. I had to commit myself to back. I want to say, you know, look at myself, look at Brian, look at Houston. You know, you can achieve these goals. So the foundation is to give those kids the opportunity, and funding is always a challenge. So my foundation is not, if you have the talent and you have the commitment and you show that and you show the progress that you have made over the years, that the Dwight Yorke Foundation will come in and support that event. And that's what we are here for to do. And we all have a story. Everyone who's sitting down here have a story to share. And it's good that we can sit in this format here and highlight some of these success that we all have been through. So it is a good cause.
Round of applause, eh? All these champions giving back. It's fantastic. As some of you may know, I worked in the Arctic, and I worked in a community that was facing a suicide crisis. In fact, in 1 year, we had lost 10 young people to suicide. And my husband and I, we started a running club, not even that we're natural runners, but it was an interest the kids had, and we wanted to continue to develop it. And sometimes there's this slogan, live to move, move to live. And it really came to life in that context where my young runners would come to me and say that, you know, when they were facing a tough challenge, facing some battling depression or suicidal thoughts, they found comfort in sport. They found that it wasn't just about physical health, but for them in that it was more of a recreational program or youth development program. It was a lot more about mental. And anything you'd like to share?
Because your head's under thoughts in your head, and it forces you to be present. You know, when I was much younger, I would pass the time of all those hours singing a song in my head, or you know, thinking about what's going to happen the next weekend, or what's happening in school, or what happened, you know, yesterday or, you know, today. But as I got older, I learned the ability to focus, something that Wladimir and I talked about quite a bit last night. What separated me from the rest of the pack was I figured out a way to focus and to use my time wisely, and to use the time in my own head very, very wisely. And as I got older, I feel like I got a lot more introspective, and I used that quiet time as a way to reflect, a way to learn, and a way to meditate. You know, yoga is something that has become so popular. And one of the things that people have the biggest trouble with is just being present in the moment and not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, but just thinking about the present. And that's something that I learned and I developed over many, many years in swimming because I was forced to.
And thank you for highlighting that, because sometimes we look at athletes and we just think about their physicality, but there's so much going on up here as well that leads to your success. Would you like to comment at all on mental health and
Yeah,
sports?
sure. I'll start off with a little story. You know, when I was 29 years old, 28 years old, peak of my cricketing career, I got diagnosed with diabetes.
Okay.
And usually at that stage, you know, diabetes, whatever I knew, was associated with obesity, unhealthy lifestyle. I was one of the fittest athletes
Yeah.
in the world at the time. And at that particular phase was very difficult phase for me. And I think the focus really helped me there, belief and focus. Because when I went to a doctor, he said, you got to have an insulin 4 times a day. And I'm talking about 1997, and I was 28 years old. And then, as you know, my late wife, I sat down with her. She was a psychologist, and you know, we kind of researched about the disease. That was the first step to find out what I was fighting with. And then I realized that if I can discipline my lifestyle and focus more on my mental strength, then I can play cricket. It took me about 3 to 4 months to come back to normal sugar levels with insulin intake, because it was very difficult to take insulin. In 97, there were proper injections, not like now, very little one needles now. And carry it with me, carry it with ice in a fridge. And then I realized there's a hypo where you get sugar levels get low. So I've learned it myself. If I was playing a test match, before lunch break, usually you have insulin. I never used to have insulin. I learned myself, because if I'm going out to bowl, I'm going to exert myself.
Okay.
So it means my sugar levels, there's more chance of going them down.
Yeah.
So I just learned these little tricks over and over the period. And after that, I played about 8 years for Pakistan with diabetes. And now, from last, I think, 21 years being a diabetic, I'm a role model to diabetes, not just in Pakistan, the whole subcontinent, worldwide, because I kind of changed the mindset of the developing countries that with diabetes, you get tired, you know, your lifestyle will be gone, you'll die very soon. But touch wood, I have really changed a lot of lives, and that again got to do with my mental ability to be focused and believe that I can do it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Brian, is there anything you'd like to share about mental health and sport?
Well, I'm going to have a different approach to it because as a teenager growing up, you know, my skill level at cricket and football was pretty high. But my academic side was very, very poor. And I went to a school where a lot of the teachers didn't pay attention to how good I was as a cricketer. And I believe I grew my mental strength from actually having to work hard, if it was geography, French, whatever it was. And I believe that I gained a lot from the things that I wasn't good at. Just facing a challenge. I mean, going out to bat as a teenager, playing with kids your age, you know, and scoring runs, it came naturally for me. But sitting down in a classroom for 40 minutes and sitting down there from 7:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon was difficult. And I believe today that I owe a lot of gratitude to my teachers that felt that, listen, you might be a cricketer, but that's only going to be a very short time. You need to concentrate on your academic. And I believe that what I gained from that classroom, when I applied it in difficult situations at cricket, I felt that, you know, it worked very well. So my mental strength came from stuff that I was very weak at, that I actually became maybe average or above average. I gained a lot from that.
Very great. I think my next question, I'm going to call it the gender bender question. Okay, it could be like a new pitch that you throw. It curves. Okay, so we talked already about how, for example, nationality, growing up in the Caribbean, can be a barrier to having access to elite sport. We know that income levels can be a barrier, and we also know that gender can be a barrier as well. I would, for you, gender, how would that
Being a woman, I assume coming out of the Caribbean, not having, from a woman perspective, I assume it would have been pretty much a little bit more tougher coming out of the Caribbean. Because I think in the modern day now that they are getting much more exposure to, and which is quite rightly so. But I think back in the days, they probably would not have had so much exposure. You had to have a special talent to get out of the Caribbean back in 1973, whatever it was. But I'm sure that these women that we are facing today, that the agenda thing is always a bit of a touchy subject, but we've seen that people are being very, very successful, i.e., right here, what we have, this beautiful woman, 12 gold medals. This just goes to show that if you are committed to, it doesn't matter what agenda you are or gender you come from or country that you come from, it is important that the same should be applied whether you are obviously a man or a woman. And I think that is great to see that women in today's game or today's world are getting the equal right, the recognition that they deserve, the opportunity that they deserve. So I feel that right now women's sports are on the up, and a lot of people are giving that a lot of notice now, and quite rightly so. But I think back in the days, I don't think it would have been much different. I think it would have been still a challenge coming out of the Caribbean in terms of trying to make it out there. But as I said, if you are focused and determined, I think that there's always going to be obstacle. There is always, we talk about mental toughness. I think that's, and focus. I think those are things that we all have in common sitting up here. I think that's something that you have to be successful in any walk of life, whether it's sports as we are talking about, but in your own jobs as well. You have to have that, focus and that toughness at times, because there are times when you will need that, mental toughness to get through difficult situations. And that's what separates us from the other guys who may be more gifted than us at times. Because I played with people who were far more gifted than I was, but they didn't have the mental toughness to get through it. Some of them looked for the easy way out. And that is always an easy way. But there are challenges that sometimes you have to, what we say, get in the trenches. And so you're back up against the wall, and you have to fight and fight and fight to get through those moments. And it's not always going to be easy, because I had a lot of bumpy road along the way. Lots of challenges, leaving the beautiful Caribbean island to go to England, not saying England, and changing that. England has been obviously good to me, but that was the opportunity I wanted. And so I was very lucky. And I feel being a woman today, the place is in a much better world for women's sports, and to give them opportunity to fulfill their dreams.
Thank you. Wladimir, if you were a 6'5" woman, do you think you would have had the same career?
No chance. I mean, with this size, you have to find an opponent, right? So it would have been like,
you might have been in a weight class by your own.
Yeah, I guess so. Me and me. Back in the Soviet times, or back in like 80s, when I started, so there were no female boxing. So now it's even became an Olympic sports. That's exactly what you said. There's more mutual respect between man and woman. There should be even more, obviously. And I think women in general are tougher than men. Men might disagree, but like to become...
Not with that handshake yesterday. That was a tough handshake.
Please, you took your cast off, I see. So I believe that probably the best performance and the most complicated and difficult for a woman to actually carry a child and give birth.
Yes.
And that's like unimaginable for a man how that works. So it's something that is unimaginable. So performance is also very complicated. I don't want to get it to kind of, but I experience and my expertise in sport. We talk a lot about forget about it in a week or two, because we have a lot of information. As soon as we're going to leave this door, it's all the rest of the world is going to face us. So to imagine what it's going to look like, my goal and my target, when I'm going to reach it. Obviously, self-made man doesn't exist. So you need allies on your way to the goal. That's the fourth step. And the fifth and final, you have to be in love with your goal, in the better shape of obsession. If you're obsessed about your goal, you're going to give anything you have to just reach it. And if you're not really obsessed about your goal, forget it. It's the wrong goal. So choose something else. And obviously, it's nothing new here, but there's some 3 things that will help also for mental strength for a female in this case. To be just egotistical. Sound negative, but you have to be egotistical. If you have a goal, you have to just follow it right there. And we fly all commercial, some of us maybe, fly commercial planes, and we see that video that, you know, when the air pressure in the cabin drops, the oxygen mask drops, you know, and then you see the male or female sitting next to a child. And then, so an adult puts the mask on, and then to the child. So logically say, like, what? You're kind of egotistical. You have to help child first. But you can help others if you feel good about yourself, and with yourself, in longevity, you can really serve longer to the others. So that's why egotistical doesn't mean negative in this case. It's more positive.
Yeah.
Very important to also, another 2 I will speak, and then about another 2 topics, not topics, but points in this case. It's very important to act without compromises. Every compromise costs time. The most complicated challenge that we have in our life. There's no news. We're all gonna die. Some of us are earlier, accidents, health, some others later, you know, longevity in life and modern technology and everything. So it's something that we have limited, the time. So we need to achieve our goals in a very short period of time. So every compromise costs you time, and it will keep you out of your focus to the goal and to the target. And the last and the final one, please consider it multidimensional. Not monodimensional, but multidimensional. Because there are always some exceptions of the rules, of course. And if you think multidimensional, then things are going to work out well. That's my opinion.
So ladies got to be confident and have that self-confidence and pride, and hopefully they're going to overcome those barriers. If you were Nicholas instead of Natalie, you know, thinking about even in terms of like sponsorship or access or prize money, you know, I'm just thinking about men's football versus women's football and what those salaries look like. What do you think? How do you think that might have changed your sporting experience?
I'm in one of those few sports that the opportunities and the prize money and all of that is pretty even for men and women. You know, when you grow up and you're on a swim team, the men and women train together. The last several years of my life, I actually trained on an all-men's team, but that wasn't that unusual because swimming is very, very co-ed. The last vestige of perhaps sexism in sport was that the women in the Olympics do the 800 freestyle, whereas the men do the mile because the men could do 1500. But actually now in 2020 Tokyo Olympics, they're getting rid of that, and they're providing, or they're offering both events for both men and women. So in swimming, it's very, very equal. You know, maybe people might get marketed differently, and I think that has to do country to country. But in the U.S., I've been very fortunate that I feel like I've earned an equivalent living and gotten the same recognition as my male peers. And I think that has to do with the Olympics and just my sport. You know, people are just as interested in the male swimmers as they are as in the female swimmers. But going back to your original question, if I was a boy, you know, I think of the Beyonce song, but when I was a kid, I probably would have started with swimming anyway because I had a pool in my backyard and my parents were just being responsible parents and teaching me how to swim, and naturally I progressed onto the swim team. I did swim lessons, and then I was good in the water and I went to the swim team. But my dad, his sport was martial arts, and I wanted to do martial arts so badly as a kid, and I was a tomboy. I don't know if is that an American term? It might be. I was a very boyish little girl, very aggressive. I always wanted to do martial arts so badly, but my dad said there's no way that I was going to do martial arts. So I think he didn't want me to lose teeth and get my nose broken or something. But other than that, I think I probably would have followed a similar path.
Okay, or you could have been a kung fu master.
I could have been a kung fu master.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I'm Canadian, and we have a very beautiful prime minister right now. Are you guys familiar with Justin Trudeau, right? Yeah. And the last couple of years, he's actually stepped into the boxing ring to raise awareness on certain issues, and he's challenged maybe a fellow senator or a celebrity to come into the ring with him. And I'd like to know, in your case, is there anybody, a world leader, a celebrity, a teacher, a fellow athlete that you'd like to invite into the ring with you to raise awareness about anything?
To raise awareness?
Or to send a certain message?
To the Congress.
Okay, so my sport, or when I used to be an athlete, so I'm retired now. In boxing, there's an attitude, if you're a champion, you just demolish the other guy. That's it. There's no compromises, because otherwise you're going to be demolished. So you really have only one choice. And then I was thinking about it, and I got this approach by a good friend of mine, and he said, let's knock illiteracy out.
Wow, beautiful.
And
Knock out
you know what?
illiteracy.
We got 26 canvases, like pretty big. And then I just punched the letters out. So 26 letters of alphabet. And then we sold it, and we raised tons of money. So hundreds of thousands of euros in this case. And that was my fight. So, and I fought illiteracy, and I think that's, in my opinion, was pretty damn good opponent to knock him out.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. And climate change is next if you have time for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump over to Brian, one of the best batters of all time. And I don't know if it ever happened that you were in a slump, maybe, okay? Sometimes as a teacher, sometimes as a teacher we're in slumps. Maybe my students aren't showing up to class, or I'm not using the best tools, I'm not getting my messages across, or we're going through some tough times in the classroom. When you go through slumps, how do you get through them? How do you get to the other side? What resiliency or gifts do you draw upon?
Well, first of all, let's not talk about slumps. Whenever I was going through a very good period, I made sure that was as long as possible by, working even harder to maintain the level that I did. And I have 19. It was a partnership there, and I was just playing a supportive role. I tried to do it. I found my feet again to actually dominate. I was a batsman who felt that in a partnership, I wanted to be the one to dominate, else to do it. But I succeeded. In terms of dealing with that failure, for me, it was just allowing it to take its course. And as soon as I found something that was going to propel me back to top form, I grabbed onto it and worked with it.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I've been asking a ton of questions. Perhaps there's some audience members who also have questions. Can you? There's right here in the tie, right in front of me. May please ask with a loud voice, or I can repeat your question.
Hi, myself Ashok. I work for JETS Education. I'm the VP Financial Reporting of JETS. So my question, it's a common question. So just give an answer. How you deal with how you handle failure?
How do you handle failure? Maybe we'll get you to comment on that one.
Yeah, I've had a really wonderful career, but I've had a lot of challenges and something that could be perceived as a failure. I tore my labrum in my left shoulder when I was a teenager. I broke this shoulder a week before our Olympic trials in Beijing. So Beijing, I ended up winning 6 Olympic medals on a broken shoulder. which was like at the time. At the time, I thought it was a really bad case of tendonitis, but yeah, it was horrible. But every challenge, every failure, if I had the right attitude, I was able to turn it into an asset. And when I say that, when I had that initial shoulder injury, the left shoulder, it took about 2 years to rehab that. I ended up missing my first Olympic team. But what it forced me to do is, one, see how important sport was in my life. I feel like at that point, as a 16-year-old, I was starting to take it for granted. I was starting to feel sorry for myself at how many hours I was spending in the pool, not getting to hang out with friends, things like that. When it was almost taken away from me, I realized how important it was. And it also forced me to change my technique quite a bit. It forced me to look at swimming very differently. And ultimately, I believe having that initial major injury ended up being the greatest gift, because it created such a fire in me that, the next 4 years, I went on to win 5 medals and then 6 medals and then another medal. So I think had I not had that failure of missing my first Olympic team, I wouldn't have 12 Olympic medals today. I think I would have been just happy being an Olympian. But because of that, it gave me so much fire.
Beautiful, beautiful. Eartha, do you have a question? Yes. Mic to Eartha, if possible.
Hi. My question is to the panel, but mainly to Dwight Yorke. So my story almost replicates yours. I come from a big family from a deprived area, but the barrier that I had is the gender, whereas you had coming from the Caribbean. And so often when I go to deprived countries, I seem to find that the kids' skill level is a lot higher than we have in our developed countries. Is there anything that we can do here in developed countries in schools that will allow that collaboration with people from other deprived countries, not just from foundations, but is there anything that we can embed in schools to allow that transition to happen?
Yeah, I think that is a very, very good question. I think that is something that in the modern day world, I think that is very good to try and, get involvement with school and have that communication. And I think that's why from an early stage and now, they are trying to encourage kids to travel abroad, to get that experience, to mingle with different schools and different background, a different culture. And that's something that we haven't been able to do back in the Caribbean for a number of years. And I feel that is something to take the kids forward, to give them that experience, that know-how, what it takes to see things differently rather than just in the Caribbean in itself. So I think that it can work if the schools are prepared to work with each other, to try and interact that sort of conversation, to embrace those kids, to have that experience, to take them forward. And I feel that is something that I think schools can look at, to give those kids that opportunity to go out there and indulge with other kids and indulge with other background, because that will be very important, taking those kids forward, to see, come to Dubai. Imagine they come on a school trip, come to Dubai and interact with these kids. Mm-hmm. I feel that is something that could be so vital for these kids, just to have that little one experience. Yeah. And that could be the difference, and I think that the way how things are in the world today, that is something that I think schools should be looking at, to try and give those kids that opportunity to come out here and test their skills and interact with different background, different kids. And I feel that's something that can seriously work. But that's a very good question that these kids could certainly have that opportunity to come out here, not just in Dubai, but around the world, even up the islands of the Caribbean as well, because some of these kids never really even leave the Caribbean, let alone, get as far as Dubai. So I think that is something for sure that can happen.
That question makes me think of a great story we just talked about outside, where I think it was maybe a YouTube video or something like this. I'll let you tell it.
Somebody posted a video of a 6.5 years old kid from a little village about 6 hours drive from Lahore. Lahore is the second biggest city in Pakistan. And I think the area name is Chicha Watni, that's the name of the village. And that boy was bowling left arm fast bowling, 6.5. And when I saw that video and I retweeted it saying, you know, the cricketing talent in his veins in Pakistanis, Indians, or West Indians, or Caribbeans. But you know, finally one TV channel found that guy, and he's 6.5, and he bowl exactly. I mean, not like me, but he's got the potential to be one of the top cricketers in the world. So that shows the amount of talent we have in Pakistan in that particular sport. It's just how to give these kids an opportunity. You know, the opportunity is the main problem in developing countries. That's a problem we are having in Pakistan. But again, now, like I said, Akram Foundation is helping. Hopefully, I'm going to meet that kid. I'll go to his village. I'll meet him. And I will have someone to sponsor. There are a lot of people in Pakistan who will sponsor it. And I'll try to coach him. And hopefully, eventually, the idea is kids like him get the opportunity at the right time and eventually go and represent their country, whatever sport they love.
Fantastic. I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to throw it out to my main man, Mike from Kenya.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting teaching. My main question is, what is your, how do you guys look at the future schools? Because now we're debating on training our children beyond 2030. What is your vision towards upcoming schools, schools of the future?
Schools of the future, schools in 2030. Anybody like to jump in on that?
I'll start off with my own country. I think for me, what's more important is to start off with education is very, very important, but with it sports as well. You know, in Pakistan, I've seen schools, just schools, no ground, so no sport. So I reckon in 2030 onwards, there should be emphasis on studies and as much as emphasis on sports as well. But that, because sports can either make you and break you as well, they'll give you confidence as a kid to compete against the best of the best.
Beautiful, beautiful. The countdown is on. We've got 7 seconds left. Can we just give everybody a warm round of applause? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I believe the big event is about to start. So I welcome everybody to head over to, I believe it's at the ballroom, where the next $1 million teacher is going to be announced.
Yeah, man. No worries. Yeah, of course. Yeah.